Lorna Dane, Earth-616. Lorna Dane is the daughter of the infamous Magneto. Inheriting her father's mutant abilities of magnetism, she adopted the name Polaris. She has explored very diverse paths concerning her stance on mutant affairs. Manipulated by the villain Mesmero, Dane was rescued by the mutant hero group known as the X-Men and ultimately joined their ranks. However, she soon decided to abandon the eccentric life of a mutant superhero in order to pursue an education in geophysics. Contrary to her wishes though, Polaris was constantly dragged back to mutant crises for being a victim of many ill-intended actors, such as Eric the Red, the Marauders, Zaladane, Apocalypse, and even her father Magneto. This has naturally led her to be a relevant player in the mutant community, especially by being a prominent agent for the many iterations of X-Factor and for her familial relationship to Magneto. On the mutant island nation of Krakoa, Polaris has grown even closer to her father. Soon after proposing the reformulation of X-Factor as an investigative agency, Polaris was elected by the Krakoans to join the most recent version of the X-Men. History. Early years. Lorna Dane is a mutant, born of an affair between her mother Susanna and mutant terrorist Magneto. Her mother's husband, Arnold, later learned of this affair and confronted his wife while he was flying her and Lorna on his plane. An argument erupted, upsetting the infant Lorna, whose desperation to make her parents stop fighting triggered an early manifestation of her immense magnetic abilities, which caused her to emit a magnetic pulse that destroyed the plane and killed her parents, as well as giving her hair its iconic green color. Lorna survived the crash and was found by her true father, Magneto, who had been drawn to the location by her magnetic pulse. Believing that she was not ready for her abilities or the life he could offer her, he had his associate mastermind use his illusionary powers to rewrite Lorna's memories of that day, leaving her to believe that her parents died in a plane crash when she was an infant. Lorna was raised by Arnold's sister and her husband, and grew up thinking that they were her real parents. X-Men. When Lorna was nearly 20 years old, she met Iceman after being identified as a mutant by Cerebro. Lorna's magnetic powers emerged when she was controlled by Mesmero and subjected to a mutant energy stimulator device. He then convinced Lorna that she was the daughter of Magneto, unaware that this was in fact the truth, coercing her to work with him and her supposed father against the X-Men. Iceman, however, managed to reach her and present evidence that convinced Lorna that her true parents had died in a plane crash years earlier, making her turn against Magneto, who was revealed to be an android double. Lorna returned home with the X-Men and, eventually, joined the team. In the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, the X-Men were tutored by Professor Charles Xavier and trained in the use of their powers in the Danger Room. For a while, Iceman had a crush on her, but Lorna didn't truly reciprocate the feelings. Lorna did, however, fall in love with her teammate Havoc, the brother of Cyclops. They both served for a time as active X-Men and helped Professor X repel an invasion by the aliens Nox. Later with the X-Men, they met Khazar in the Savage Land, where Lorna invented her first codename Magnetrix. Even though she quickly dropped the name, Havoc continued to use it as a way to annoy and flirt with her. When Lorna first encountered the real Magneto in the Savage Land, she was surprised that he did not know who she was. They were, later, targeted by the Promise, and met the Hulk. Later, the X-Men and a number of mutants were kidnapped by the Secret Empire to harness their energy to power an Electronero. After Number 1 landed the saucer on the White House lawn and defeated Moonstone, the Secret Empire was defeated by Cyclops, Captain America, the Falcon, and Marvel Girl. When the old and new X-Men together fought the island Krakoa, it seemed Lorna displayed her major power potential for the first time as she disrupted the Earth's magnetic field, flinging Krakoa into deep space. Years later, it was revealed that Professor Xavier actually altered the minds of everyone to cover up the fact that his second team of X-Men were all slaughtered attempting to save them. Following the X-Men's battle against the island Krakoa, Lorna and Alex left the X-Men to pursue their mutual interest in geophysics, attending graduate school in Nevada. Mind controlled by Shur-AR. Lorna received her Shur-AR-designed costume when her mind came under the domination of the Shur-AR intelligence agent, Eric the Red, also known as Eric the Red. It was he who gave Lorna the codename Polaris. At the time, Shakari served Ken Naramani, the emperor of the Shur-AR galaxy, later deposed in favor of his sister, Lilandra Naramani. Shakari kidnapped Alex and Lorna and subjected them to a powerful form of mind control. They were turned against the X-Men and attempted to assassinate Professor Xavier. A massive battle ensued at Kennedy International Airport, with the duo battling the X-Men. Polaris was defeated by Storm, but Shakari managed to escape with both her and Alex. Eventually, Professor Xavier freed Lorna and Alex from Shakari's control and they stayed on Muir Island for their recovery. The Living Pharaoh and Civilian Life. While there, Lorna and Alex were attacked by henchmen of the Living Pharaoh, and Lorna attempted to contact the X-Men but received no answer and contacted Beast in the Avengers. After arriving in New York, Spider-Man came to their aid and accidentally knocked the Living Pharaoh into a containment unit that was to be used to make Alex a living battery to magnify the Pharaoh's powers 1,000,000-fold, and he was transformed into the living monolith again. Lorna was swept out to sea and later rescued by Thor. After returning to Muir Island, Lorna and Alex aided the X-Men battling Proteus. Afterward, they settled in New Mexico, where they completed their advanced degrees. Lorna and Alex returned from time to time to assist the team, but they led a happy civilian life for a number of years. Professor X called on Alex and Lorna for help in the rescue of the friends and family of the X-Men from Arcade's henchman Mistlock in Murder World. While living in the Rio Diablo Mountains of northern New Mexico, Alex and Lorna stumbled upon a brood star shark, and Alex left Lorna for New York. Malice. Later, the Marauders ambushed Lorna and her mind was overtaken by an evil being, known as Malice, while Lorna saw Alex off to check on the X-Men. As Malice, Lorna led the Marauders for a few months, first attempting to kill Cyclops' wife, Madeline Pryor Summers, while she was lost in a hospital, and battled Alex and the X-Men. Malice's energy matrix was very compatible with Lorna's powers, and the two became grafted together, apparently inseparable. When Malice attempted to leave Lorna, Mr. Sinister informed them that he was aware of the connection and that was why he suggested their union. Later, Havoc tracked the Marauders in the alley, and the X-Men ambushed them. The Marauders fled and Polaris, controlled by Malice, returned to Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister was attempting to learn all he could from the X-Men and X-Factor and thoroughly went through the Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. Following Mr. Sinister's psychic trail, Marvel Girl tracked him to the school and the X-Men and X-Factor were ambushed by the Marauders. While interrogating Polaris/Malice, Mr. Sinister destroyed the school. While the X-Men and X-Factor battled Sinister and Malice, Sinister attempted to claim Marvel Girl, but Cyclops seemingly killed Sinister with an unchecked optic blast. After Mr. Sinister was seemingly killed, Malice's holdover Polaris weakened and Lorna was able to place a phone call to the X-Men in Australia for help, but they arrived too late. Lorna was with her alleged half-sister Lorna, a priestess for the Savage Lands Sun people. The X-Men arrived in time to witness Lorna's getaway, but Havoc managed to infiltrate her army in disguise while the X-Men followed. There, the X-Men found that Lorna had amassed an army of Savage Land natives who were being mentally controlled for her by Worm, one of the Savage Land mutates. Lorna revealed that she was, in fact, Lorna's sister and, using the high evolutionary machinery, stripped Polaris of her magnetic powers and took them as her own. The process also managed to finally separate Lorna and Malice. Lorna and her forces clashed with Khazar and the X-Men, who were trying to free Lorna. During the encounter, Polaris' secondary mutation kicked in and she grew in height, towering over Alex, was invulnerable, and had superhuman strength. Lorna's army was released from Worm's control and Lorna regained her freedom. Secondary mutation. Having nowhere else to go, Lorna headed for Muir Island. On her way there, her secondary mutation kicked in again, as was evidenced by her increased size. She discovered that her new mutation also affected those around her, amplifying negative emotions such as anger and hate. Upon examination, even Moira MacTaggart was at a loss to explain Lorna's new mutation, although she did confirm that the only way Lorna could have taken her powers away was if she were a biological sibling. Lorna was on hand to help Moira and Banshee defend Muir Island from the attacking Reavers, who were there looking for Wolverine. At the time, it was not clear that she drew her strength from being a nexus for negative emotional energies. Lorna's new status as a nexus, however, was perceived by the villainous Shadow King. The Shadow King used Polaris as a gateway to allow him access to the mortal realm from the astral plane, causing a worldwide increase in anger, hatred, and violence in the process. Lorna was freed of his influence with the help of X-Factor and the X-Men. Upon the defeat of the Shadow King, Lorna's powers returned due to a combination of Lorna's death a short time before and the neural disruptive psionic blade of the X-Man Psylocke, leaving no trace of her increased size, strength, or emotion control powers. X-Factor. Lorna was then asked to join the newly formed government X-Factor by Valerie Cooper and, tired of hiding out on Muir Island, she accepted. Lorna and Alex were set as its leaders. Joining X-Factor offered her the chance to reunite with Alex, but their relationship remained largely unresolved. Since this time, X-Factor had changed dramatically, and so had Polaris, growing stronger and surer of herself, and more independent from Alex. They tried to maintain the relationship, but they broke up and reconciled multiple times. Polaris became a mainstay of X-Factor and became the government's secret weapon against a possible attack from Magneto. Malice returned to bother her once more, but Havoc and Polaris, out of their love for each other, each tried to absorb her, preventing the other from being possessed. In the end, Malice perished at the hands of Mr. Sinister. X-Factor's atmosphere changed as criminals Mystique and Sabretooth were forced by the government to join the group. Lorna began to question her place on the team and finally found her suspicions to be justified after Sabretooth ran amok, almost killing the whole team. Havoc went undercover to stop the Dark Beast, forming a brotherhood as part of his cover, until it was finally revealed that his terrorist activities had been a front for his true undercover work. Lorna forgave him, although she rejected him romantically. She also rejoined X-Factor only to watch as Havoc was seemingly killed in the explosion of a faulty time machine constructed by the mutant from the future, Greystone. Lorna left X-Factor to grieve and the group disbanded. The 12 months later, Nightcrawler ran into Lorna in a church, where she confided in him that she felt she was being followed and that she was sure Alex was alive because the living monolith hadn't returned. Little did she know that she was right on both counts. A group of Skrulls working with Apocalypse were indeed shadowing her, and broke into her apartment to retrieve the headgear from Alex's original costume. Lorna learned that she was one of the 12, a team of mutants supposedly destined to usher in a new golden age for mutant kind. Lorna freaked, even after the X-Men set a trap for the Skrulls and found their base. She journeyed with the X-Men to Egypt to battle Apocalypse. Lorna was captured along with the rest of the 12, but when Magneto's failing power short-circuited Apocalypse's plan and the living monolith burst free as well, Magneto somehow tapped into Lorna's power and was able to command the magnetic field with incredible force. Attributes. Powers. As his daughter, her powers are nearly identical to Magneto's. Lorna is an alpha mutant with both a primary and secondary mutation. After Wanda's M-Day, Polaris lost all of her mutant abilities. Polaris then became Pestilence and had celestial technology grafted to her spine by Apocalypse, which has somehow reactivated her X-gene and her powers. Magnetic field manipulation. She has the ability to manipulate magnetism. Although she has the potential to exercise all of the powers that Magneto has, as yet she has only used powers involving the manipulation of magnetic, electrical, and gravitational fields. Moreover, she has yet summoned as great an amount of energy as Magneto has. The exact limits on the amount weight that she can magnetically lift at present have not been measured. Since she has, in the past, preferred not to use her powers in combat situations, and has decades less experience with them, she is not up to par with Magneto's level of experience. As with Magneto, it is unknown whether Polaris's powers are purely psionic or whether they derive from her physically. The main feat made possible by magnetism is Polaris' ability to lift and manipulate metal. She has shown such fine-tuned skills as to nearly liquefy, mend, and reconstruct metallic objects, and has some level of influence on the ferrous metals that reside in everything. She once mended and reconstructed silverware and metallic plates into a metallic suit identical to Magneto's costume. Magnetic force fields. Polaris can protect herself from physical harm, can stretch her fields to protect a large group, and can suspend persons or objects in the air. Magnetic flight. Polaris can suspend herself in flight by riding the Earth's magnetic field. Electromagnetic sight. By concentrating, Polaris can perceive the world around herself solely as patterns of magnetic and electrical energy. She can perceive the natural magnetic auras surrounding living beings, as well. Magnetic pulse. Polaris can focus her magnetic energy into powerful concussive blasts. She can also overload or short-circuit electrical systems. She has been shown destroying Shi'ar warships with single magnetic pulses. Energy absorption. Polaris has been shown absorbing some forms of energy through her magnetic force fields to temporarily boost her own strengths. Early in her career with the X-Men, she absorbed Storm's lightning blast, Cyclops' I-beam, and Havoc's energy beam at the same time, giving her enough strength to propel an entire island from the Earth and into space. Geomagnetic link. Polaris is tied very closely to Earth's EM field. As is it affected, so is she. She knows instinctively all that happens to it, and with this link, is granted an odd sort of immortality. Earth lends her strength by its simple existence. She draws on this strength all unconsciously. Organic iron manipulation. Polaris has such control over her powers that she is able to manipulate the natural iron within the blood of living organisms. She was capable of reversing the flow of an entire crowd's blood in order to render them unconscious. Metal/matter manipulation. Polaris has a great ability to be able to levitate objects metallic and non-metallic. With her electromagnetic field, she can levitate objects and destroy them in the air, or through a small manipulation of gravity, can also cause non-metallic objects to levitate in the air and manipulate it through electromagnetic energy. She has the ability to indirectly manipulate non-metallic objects via metal ores they may contain. She can perceive and manipulate matter at the subatomic level. Metal morphing, Polaris has the power to physically bond metallic substances to other elements at an atomic level. This newly developed technique allows her to blend alloys to earthen, watery, gaseous and even organic substances. Electromagnetic spectrum manipulation, Polaris has the ability to manipulate the electromagnetic spectrum and some energies like electricity, electromagnetic and magnetic, the limits of these are unknown. This is totally different from Storm, who can handle almost all the energies of the spectrum, but Polaris has great potential for it. Her power is such that she is compared to her father Magneto. Polaris has a connection to the electromagnetic field, allowing her to handle various types of energies such as electric, gamma, X-rays, ultraviolet, visible light, lasers, and more. Her personal polarity is opposite that of Magneto's. Abilities. Lorna possesses expertise in geophysics, and has earned master's and later a doctor's degree in that field. Weaknesses. Lorna appears to have inherited her father's propensity for mental illness and depression. Lorna has at various times suffered mental breakdowns, episodes of mental illness and severe depression. Paraphernalia. Equipment. She was grafted a cybernetic nanobot in her right eye by Serval Industries, allowing Harrison Snow to see what she saw at any time. Biohazard containment suit. At one point Lorna wore a metal belt with her costume that she would manipulate as a weapon or tool. Transportation. Capable of flying under her own power, which she tends to do most of the time, formerly Starjammer, X-Men Blackbird, X-Men Stratojet, Sentinel Air Transport.
If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.